Listen up, get ready, I'm not gonna take no more. There's a revolution, a revelation going on in my soul. Buckle up, get ready, we're not gonna sit back.
Sisters and brothers, ladies and gentlemen, theys and them, all you citizens of the world, welcome to Live from the Heartland for the week of April 17th. And we are recording this on April 15th, which is the notorious tax day. And something else happened on that day, April 15th, back in 1947. Jackie Robinson made his historic Major League Baseball debut for the Brooklyn Dodgers, playing against the Boston Braves at Ebbets Field. He broke the color barrier officially. There probably was some African Americans playing before, certainly Cubans. Jackie played first base. He went 0 for 3, but scored the winning run, and the day marked the end of segregated baseball. Hallelujah. Speaking of hallelujah, we see that Trump is trying to impersonate Jesus lately, if you're following things online. And some of you may be listening to this either on Lumpen Radio or on WLUW Loyola at Friday morning or Saturday morning. We want you to know that you can also look at it anytime at the Live from the Heartland show on YouTube. And there you will see a lot of graphics and things that you can only imagine when you are listening. One thing I would like to call all our viewers and listeners' attention to is our need for money to pay our engineer, to pay Zoom, to do that kind of thing. So please get a hold of us at livefromtheheartlandshow@gmail.com if you can help out. Euan Hague, my co-host today, will introduce our first guest shortly. Stay tuned. To Live from the Heartland for the week of April 17th. And we have two segments today. We're going to have a writer named Michael McColly telling us some wonderful stories about a trip he made. And then a little bit later, we're going to talk jazz for International Jazz Day. So to start us off, we're going to bring Euan Hague, our co-host, on, and he'll handle the first interview, at least at the start. Hello, Euan.
Hey, good morning, and thanks for having me back, Michael. And Michael McColly, it's great to have you on the Life in the Heartland show. Good to have you.
Glad to be here.
Thank you for joining us. I got in touch with Michael. Two Michaels. I got in touch with Michael McColly because I got his book as a Christmas present. His new book, Walking Chicago's Coast, a 63-mile journey to the Indiana Dunes. And right away, he starts off his epic adventure, a 2-day walk. Starts in Rogers Park. And so I thought I have walked some of those paths, but not as far. So
not too many people have.
No. So what inspired? What inspired you to walk all the way from Rogers Park to Indiana Dunes?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's several answers, you know. I was coming back from the UK where I was walking for a whole month. And I just didn't want to stop when I got back. And I know oftentimes at the end of like travel, I get into a little depression. And I said, no, I'm just going to keep going. And I also felt like, you know, you can walk out of London, you can walk out of Edinburgh, and why can't you walk out of Chicago? And so I'm a big walker, and the dunes are a very special place to me, as they are to many, many people. And I just felt like, could I do it, And I just set off. I went, I took a drive just to check where I was going to go. And I know the route. I mean, everyone knows the route, but to go along the lake and go through the south side and then into Whiting, Hammond, East Chicago, and Gary, I mean, that's not the path everybody goes much unless you live in those areas. And I just, the dunes were, a place where I did a lot of hiking. I have suffered from depression. I live with HIV, and several years when I first contracted HIV, I did a lot of hiking in Arizona, Colorado, and at the dunes. And so it's just always been this important place to me. And I kind of wanted to make a pilgrimage there. And I wasn't sure whether I would make it, but I gave it a shot, and I did.
and the book is in part memoir, part history of Chicago, part environmental study of the landscape, particularly in northern Indiana. And so I'm sort of wondering, what were some of the places along the way that really gave you something new that you weren't expecting?
Oh, yeah, there's so many places. I mean, I think I recommend to everybody, you walk in a city where you live and it suddenly becomes a whole new place. You think you know where you live, and then you have a different feeling. The history kind of comes out of the land, and certainly going through East Chicago and Gary, I was really awakened to, the degradation. You kind of see it. You're on the expressway and things like that. But going through it, if you walk through BP, I mean, come on, you're going to really feel the fact that your lungs are taking in this pollution and the dust, the dust from the roads and the railroads. I mean, people live around all that toxic stuff that has been there for over 100 some years, And I think that was what I really was surprised at. I mean, I know of the area, but I had no idea of just how difficult it is to live around that kind of an environment. One thing, too, is also the beauty. I mean, in Chicago, all these little pockets, there's these beautiful areas. Even though it's right next to a Superfund site, all these birds come through, every year. And, near Hammond, there's a great area where birders go. And so there's that, kind of a strangeness of Northwest Indiana and South Side of Chicago, where there's all these birds, and there's all this. So it's beautiful too, Right.
Now, and I think that what I was going to say is, as you describe it, you start in Rogers Park, and it's really easy to walk along the lakefront. There's a lake path. You can walk down the beach. But then once you kind of get onto the south side, it becomes much more difficult, and you're walking through neighborhoods. And just that contrast is kind of also written with the history of the city.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I mean, you can't go through this city and not feel the history of the Chicago riots started on the lakefront there, where that young black teenager Eugene Williams was stoned to death, and then the massacre, the Memorial Day massacre down there near the South Shore in that area, and you just feel, you just feel history. History isn't abstract, it's real, and I think if you take the time to kind of go in there, you begin to really appreciate what's happened here, all the people that have lived here and built this city. So I felt
Michael McColly, I spent a little time down there when there was still an abandoned steel mill.
Oh, and, sure.
I worked in the movie Andy Davis flick called Chain Reaction with Keanu Reeves. And that's where we were turning water into hydrogen in the film.
My God.
And, that's an empty space now. And, I was hoping the Bears, if they were going to build a new stadium, might do it there. Apparently, the governor has plans for AI or something.
Yeah,
which is too bad.
There's going to be a tech park there, I think. If they get approval, it's a toxic area. I don't know, they're going to have to do
Uh,
remediation. But right now it's Steelworkers Park, which
tell our listeners and viewers a little bit about the dunes themselves. I'm thinking back, wasn't it the great Paul Douglas who taught at University of Chicago
absolutely.
and a senator? He was the guy responsible for that.
Absolutely. I mean, the dunes are, there's a long history of the struggle to create the national park. There was a big environmental battle there. One of the first ones in the 60s, where Bethlehem Steel and the state of Indiana wanted to build their port. And people said, no, wait a minute, you're taking down the most beautiful and the largest dunes to build this port in Bethlehem Steel. And, Paul Douglas, his famous line is, I wanted to save the world when I was a young man. And towards the end of my life, all I wanted to do is save the dunes. And he was instrumental in trying to, give us a national park. Northwestern had a contract with Bethlehem Steel, and they used that in court to make sure that they got their way. And you don't tell, the board at Northwestern that, because they don't like to hear about it. But they had their hands are dirty.
And that part of the world, when you're traveling, when you're walking through that area, you're talking about the gas stations and the casinos, and such a different commercial landscape as well as industrial landscape.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, and yeah, it's, I was traveling in my own city. Mm-hmm. And, you travel around the world and everything looks new. And you walk through East Chicago and it looks new. I mean, because you're on the ground and you got to walk and you got to sit in a White Castle and just look out at the world, and it's interesting. You watch the workers come in and go and see all the trucks go by, and it's a different way. And of course, I stayed my first night at the Majestic Star Casino. It's closed now. That was Trump's early first casino in Indiana. And he's left a trail everywhere he's gone, of course. Mm-hmm. And out there was this huge parking lot because he was going to build a big, 15-story hotel, and he was going to do this and that, and it's just an empty parking lot. Yeah.
I was doing a little research, so to speak, and I came across a guy named Patrick Reardon who wrote the book, The Loop, the L Tracks, and that shaped and saved Chicago. But he said, about your book, it's an indictment of the myriad of ways human beings have failed in their stewardship of the natural world, and their stewardship of each other.
Oh,
Any comment on that?
Yeah, I really liked that review. And indeed, I did feel the disconnection, in this city. There's a big divide, as everybody knows. And if you walk it, you feel it. And for me, I grew up in Marion, Indiana, and it's a factory town, and it got lost and left behind by globalization, like Gary and parts of East Chicago and South Chicago. And so I feel that because, the way this city's been built with the expressways, we don't have to bear witness to what's been left behind. And I think that's one thing that I did really feel, sad about, is to see it up close.
Mm-hmm. One more quote about your book from David Shields, who wrote Reality Hunger. He called Walking Chicago's Coast, your book, a rhapsody of grief and appreciation.
Oh, yes. Yeah. I feel the loss, growing up in a factory town, I know what happened, and, relatives that worked in factories and things like that. And, my parents were teachers, and, my town, its population halved. And of course, Gary used to be the second biggest city in Indiana. And now it's got less than 70,000. Same way with East Chicago and in other areas in Northwest Indiana. And so I did feel the sorrow, and you feel the sorrow of the land misused. But also the land is going to survive us, it's going to just do what it needs to do. We'll be gone, and it'll just be like George Carlin. He says it'll just shake us off, But I do feel the grief in the land.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned doing long distance walks in the United Kingdom and other places in the United States. What is it? You do these as a solo, or are you interacting with people along the way? I mean, doing long distance walking, it's increasingly popular as a hobby. Obviously, there's more and more trails. I had a friend, and I know Katie Hogan, often co-host, recently did the Camino in Spain, northern Spain. So this is an increasingly popular hobby for people.
It is. I was on the Camino a few years ago, just as COVID ended and my mother had passed away, and I kind of felt like I needed to do that. And I'm actually going to the UK again in a couple of weeks to do the Coast to Coast Trail. It's become popular, but in England, it was always a pastime, especially for working people, because they lived in Manchester and Liverpool, and people who live in very tight areas, they got out of the city. Back in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, these walking clubs were very popular. And if you think of the Appalachian Trail, it was created to give workers a place to go to from Philadelphia, New York, and Boston, Baltimore. I mean, people think, the Appalachian Trail was, for special walkers, but it was kind of designed to give people a place to go to that needed to get out of the city. And so was the dunes. It was for workers. Walking, I love long distance walking. I think it really affects your perception, your sense of your spiritual connection to the land. It's very healthy. And as I said, I've done it for, dealing with depression.
Mm-hmm. Michael, let me ask you, what did you find? What was the most surprising thing on your walk along Chicago's and Indiana coastline?
Well, I think one of the things was I got the feeling, strangely, is that I really began to look at buildings and bridges, and I just had this sense of all of these people that build these things. You know what I mean? That, but I think I felt it. I said, look at all these hands and bodies that built all these buildings, and I gave it lip service. I said, oh, sure. But I had a sense of that. And that was surprising to me. Maybe it was because you could take the time to feel things and see things. The other thing was that I looked in Chicago and I looked at memorials a lot. Like what's the monuments? Who do we memorialize? Because you spend the time and you look at certain memorials and you go, what are these Native people on Congress Avenue doing here? I mean, I've seen it for years, but I began to kind of go, well, why do we have that there? And why do we have a statue of, for Mussolini over here by Soldier Field? And you notice it's got trees all around it. They don't want anyone to know it's right there,
It's still there. I was hoping that one was gone. I remember that.
It was there last time I saw it, but who do we memorialize? I mean, Sheridan. You think of Sheridan Road, and you go, well, Sheridan isn't my hero. He's
troops down there to mess with the workers.
Well, that's absolutely right. Sheridan Road is there to get those troops in there from Fort Sheridan, and I don't think a lot of people know that. And Sheridan, of course, was instrumental in the biocide of the buffalo too, and I don't know. I just felt history, as I said, a lot more, and that surprised me. You know, I mean, I took that in a lot more than I thought.
Mm-hmm.
I got. How about telling us what one thing that was most memorable for you? What?
It was. I got I got into the national park, and I went up to the rangers, and you have to pay to get into the park, even if you walk. And I went up to them and I said, well, I walked here from Chicago. Does it still cost $1? And they said, yeah. And I said, I really did. And they said, it's $1. And so I put my dollar out there. But I also kind of, met people in Gary that were really kind to me and nice. And, I ate there, and I just, Gary I know people in Gary, and I really like Gary. And I think that's one thing I really hope that city, has a renaissance. It deserves it.
Yeah.
It really does.
The thing that struck me reading the book, and obviously all the history, the memorial to Eugene Williams is probably not 15 or 20 years old. I mean, it's a relatively new installation.
Yeah.
And, I think the city is beginning to recognize its memorial landscape is maybe not what it should be. But I think also the other thing is the way you describe the rivers and the way you describe the beaches and the coastline and stuff. It just reminds you that this is a large marshy wetland that we all live in,
That's it.
And that natural underneath all the buildings and all the concrete is this basically it's a wetland. And I'm saying that thinking about the storms we had recently, and I know my basement is flooded, and so
Me too.
Oh yeah.
Yes. We live in a place of water.
We do, and we're in trouble a little bit with climate change because some areas in this city, particularly Rogers Park over here where I live on East Lake Terrace, that we had to fill in the beaches, and there's places on the south side where the level of the water can come in very easily with a big, let's say the lake levels rise. The lake levels have come up and they've gone down kind of erratically. And we've got problems. I know in Indiana, Beverly Shores, Port or Ogden Dunes, they've had their beaches are eroded, and it's there's some problems because this is a wetland and it absorbed all the lake. It didn't have this, 18 miles of a revetment wall. So I think, but here in Rogers Park, at least we have had this attempt to kind of put marram grass and things to kind of, return a little bit of the dunal landscape thanks to people in Rogers Park. So we've got some remediation to do in the future, I hope.
Michael McColly, author of Walking Chicago's Coast. How about telling the people how they can get the book and give us a hint about what you're working on now?
Oh, sure. Yeah, you can get this, in various bookstores across Chicago. And, you go on to my website, michaelmccolly.net. And you can order it from Cornell University Press, or you can Amazon, of course, or maybe bookstore.com. That's the best one because it's going to it's going to independent bookstores. And right now I'm writing about my hometown in Marion. There was a famous, infamous lynching there in 1930. And so I'm writing about that and about my family and some family history of what happened there. So that's what I'm working on right now. Yeah.
And where are you walking to today?
Probably to the community garden where I'm a part of my leadership team in the community garden, and we got a lot of stuff to do out there.
Yeah. It's the season for that. So
it is.
Thank you.
Thank you both. Yes.
Michael McColly. great book. Really enjoyed reading Walking Chicago's Coast. Gave me a lot to think about, and looking forward to learning more about the history of Indiana and this part of the world.
Okay, thanks, Euan. Thanks,
brother.
Michael.
Right on. Everybody else, stay tuned here on the left end of your dial, or however you're getting live from the Heartland, because we're going to come back and we're going to talk International Jazz Day with 3 disc jockeys who many of you have heard in various parts of the country on the air. Our guests are going to be Mark Ruffin, Barry Winograd, and Dan Bindert. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with our second segment of Live from the Heartland for the week of April 17th in the year 2026. Citizens of the world, welcome back to Live from the Heartland for the week of April 17th in the year 2026. I'm your host, Michael James. I'm here with my co-host, Euan Hague, today. And we have a music producer named Lynn Orman who really is very much involved in music, all kind of music. But she got a hold of me and said, let's talk about International Jazz Day, which I think officially is on the 30th, and an event that's going to take place at the Cultural Center in the Preston Bradley Hall downtown on the 26th, I believe. And Euan, why don't you grill these 3 guys, because we have a lot of information, and ask them a little bit about how they want us to identify them.
Why don't we start with Dan? It's 90.9 FM. Tell us a little bit, introduce yourself, and what do you play in your show?
Sure. Well, thanks for having me as a part of the panel. I mean, it's kind of an honor to be on the same call with Mark and Barry, because you're talking about a couple of Chicago radio pros that, it goes beyond Chicago with Mark, especially these days. But I'm the station manager at WDCB, which next year will be celebrating its 50th anniversary on the air, known these days and in recent decades as Chicago's home for jazz. We're, I guess you would say in radio terms, the 3rd biggest jazz station in the country after the jazz stations in New York and Los Angeles, with terrestrial radio. And I'm the station manager. I wind up jumping in to fill in on a lot of programs, but I've been in one way, shape, or form playing jazz on the radio since the late 80s, so about 37, 38 years, something like that.
Let me just throw in, we're really glad you got that station. We listen to it. It fades in and out a few places, but we hear a lot of good music.
Thanks. Glad you enjoy it.
How about Barry? Give us some info.
First of all, am I still echoing? I think I fixed it.
You fixed it.
Okay. I don't know. I went on the air in the fall of '74 at Illinois State University, WGLT. We gladly learn and teach. Ha, ha, ha. And that was followed by WBEZ. And, I think it was 78, and then 79 went on the air. Same year Cushing went on the air. We both got hired within a month of each other. Steve Cushing, the blues guy. And then in the fall of '86, I joined XRT at doing jazz transfusion for the next 31 and a half years. And then I joined DCB, I think 2001. Does that sound right?
I think that's right, Barry.
Yeah. And I was there full time until a few years ago when I semi-retired. Now I do When Jazz Was King Saturday mornings on tape. Mm-hmm. Many people ask me why I'm live Saturday mornings. I tell them I'm not.
And Mark, Dan mentioned that you have a reach beyond our city, as well as within the city. What is your role in jazz music radio?
I am the program director of 3 radio stations for Sirius XM, which still keeps me in touch with the city, thank goodness. But that's what I do now. I'm on my 46th year as a pro in radio. I started September 1st, 1980, and Barry Winograd was the guy who taught me.
I've got to leave now.
No, when I started, man, what a great time it was, Barry, right? It was me, you, Bob Bradley, Kirk Young, Neil Tesser, Linda Prince, Dick
Steve Hart.
Steve, yeah, man. What a great time that was back then.
Oh, it was.
Well, you're a lot of young guys, but I was just wondering if anyone knows about Sid McCoy, the real McCoy, who used to be on WCFL, which was the Chicago Federation of Labor. Before it became a top 40 station, there was late night jazz. And I remember as a student at Lake Forest College going down to the city around midnight and hanging out and talking with Sid McCoy. Any of you guys remember him or know that name? He, some people call him the best interviewer, interpreter of jazz ever.
Yes, yes, I know of Sid McCoy. I grew up in a record store on the west side of Chicago. Ooh. So my folks were really into radio and music. So I remember Sid McCoy as a kid. What's really cool about this event and doing some research, I found out some great things about Sid McCoy. First, I should tell you, I was Yvonne Daniels' last producer at WNUA. And when she passed away, so many people sent us air checks. And I have an air check of the first night Yvonne Daniels was on WCFL with Sid McCoy that we're going to try to play at this event. Okay.
Cool.
And I found out that when Sid McCoy was fired from WCFL, this is crazy. He did the overnights and they were going pop, and the guy he had to train was Larry Lujak.
Wow, that's going back too. Well, why don't we let you guys, whoever wants to go first, talk about the jazz on the radio, what we know about the history of it, particularly in Chicago, and then we can get to where jazz on the radio is at today.
Well, I brought a picture, if you can see it.
We can.
Okay. Oh. Mark knows who it is.
Sure.
Yeah. It's autographed, but you don't get to see the autograph. Yeah, but Dick Buckley, I mean, he was inspirational, a mentor, and had the craziest house in the world if you'd never been to it. That's all I'm good. But I'll start with the Dick Buckley story. So I'm engineering at WBEZ, and it's before I went on the air. But, you're sitting at a board where you're seeing the personality behind you through a mirror, and they're in the room next to you. So I'm sitting there. It's my first time with Buckley, hands me aside, he says, whatever. And I get it going on the turntable. That's all we had were turntables at the time. And all of a sudden I look up in the mirror and I look back and Dick's doing one of these. And I'm like, oh, great. My first time on the air with Dick Buckley, he's having a heart attack and dying. So I ran back there. He was fine. It was, what was that disease he has?
Narcolepsy.
Yeah. And no one told me he was a narcoleptic, and he was having such a good time. He was having this little chuckle, laughing and everything. And that's what brought it on. So that's my first experience with Dick Buckley.
I think Dick Buckley is a good through line for all of us. I know Barry worked with him when he was really at the height, and I was kind of with him at the end. I wound up being his producer during the tail end of his career at WBEZ, and was on the air with him. And the story is about narcolepsy. Everybody was sort of aware of that. I used to give him rides home. He would take a taxi in from Oak Park, do the program, and I would give him a ride home, and he would fall asleep in the middle of telling me a great story. He was telling me a story, and he would say in advance, don't take it personally if I fall asleep. It's just narcolepsy. But sometimes he would sort of fall asleep as the record would play, and I would wake him up just before the end of the record, and he would spring back to life and have all the information about Thelonious Monk and everybody that played on the record. And of course, his voice of God was, I mean, if there was ever a voice made for radio, Buckley's the gold standard.
It's funny. All three of us have that experience of playing music for Buckley. All three of us. When Barry and I were at BEZ, I think they called us, Barry, there was a title. We were overblown board ops. Operational engineers were our title because we had to deal with the satellite. Yeah. But it was a great time because the DJs couldn't play the records. So here I am, a jazz fan, and I'm playing the music that Dick Buckley, Linda Prince, Neil Tesser, all they do is talk. We played the tune. So it was a very cool gig. Yeah.
Well, Mark, did you ever experience the Buckley where he handed you a side as he was walking in? He said, side 2, cut 1, and he'd introduce something and it wasn't the album that he gave you? Yeah. And you'd be, look, what should I do? He'd just point and say, play it. Don't worry about it. Yeah.
It was Buckley. I learned so many lessons from Buckley. It's Buckley who told me it's only radio. Let it go. Mm-hmm. It's only radio. And to this day, I still, the line, that reminds me to remind you. I got that straight from Dick Buckley.
Well, remember, if I was meant to be an engineer, I would have been one. When he was running combo, it was a disaster. Yeah.
I think it's interesting that all three of us both have connections with both WDCB and WBEZ, that we each had 10 years there and connected with a lot of the same people. I know Richard Steele, who is just the greatest, and we all love Richard Steele. I got to work with him for a long time and got to know Richard very well. And I'm so glad to hear that he's going to be on the panel. Just wanted to mention Larry Smith, one of the great DJs who was late night on the air for many years at WBEZ. But even before that, I've got an air check kicking around somewhere of Larry broadcasting. He did a lot of live broadcasts from the Sutherland Lounge in the early 60s.
I remember the Sutherland Lounge.
Yeah. and there was where he's saying Elvin Jones taking his bows, it was the Coltrane Quartet playing in 1961 at the Sutherland Lounge. And that was Larry's sort of always was his glory days all the way to the end, was being able to host all the Miles Davis, Bill Evans, John Coltrane, all these great musicians live from the Sutherland. Do you know which station that was, Mark?
No, but do you have the audio?
I'll have to hunt it down, but I've got, and it's a short clip, but it is there. I do have it someplace. I'll see if I can hunt it down for you.
Wow. Cool. Wow. And Barry, I always wanted to know this. We had to play the sides for Linda and for Neil and for Buckley. Why didn't we have to do that for Larry Smith? It was on after midnight, but I recall Larry came.
Well, I can't tell you because I was the first all-night host. I remember when I went on first, they canceled classical music for the first time in years, and was some guy whose name I don't remember, but was a well-known, been there forever type musician and announcer, and it was Carol Nolan and Jim Nader. They were and Jim Nader was the program director. Yeah, and he's the one who hired me there. They were like, we'll see what happens, and it went on, and then I did that for like 9 years, and then Larry came on. So we were doing combo then.
Well, you guys are bringing up a lot of memories. I'm a little older than you, and I remember going to the Sutherland Lounge and seeing Roland Kirk, which was quite a show. And I just wanted, since we're all showing pictures and stuff, here is a painting of Charlie Parker that was on the cover of the Heartland Journal a number of years ago.
Beautiful.
Very nice.
How about someone telling us a little bit about International Jazz Day and then the event that we're going to have here in Chicago?
Mr. Ruffin.
Actually, Michael, I was the voice of God at the very first International Jazz Day celebration at United Nations.
Hallelujah.
You guys know what voice of God is, right? The announcer, the hidden announcer that you never see. And I've been to many of them. I've been to Morocco, St. Petersburg, Russia, the one at the White House, the one in Havana. So I've been to a lot of them. And I have to say, as the Chicago Jazz Alliance has pulled it together, this is the one I believe that really brings in the community more than any of the other ones I've been. So and what happens every April 30th, this huge organization, two of them actually, UNESCO and Herbie Hancock Institute of Jazz, they pick a city and they come in with all their big names and all their big umbrellas. And it's up to the community to find things to get under that umbrella to help them promote it. And that's really how they work. And again, I think Chicago has done such a great job. There's so many great events starting on the 25th through the 1st of May. And you can find them at chicago.jazzday.com or jazzday.com.
And I'd just like to say I'm going to actually be performing with the Chicago Jazz for Chicago Big Band. It's at noon on that Monday, and it's a big band led by the great trumpeter Roger Ingram and saxophonist Natalie Scharf, and we'll be at noon at the Cultural Center on that Monday.
Wow. See, go ahead.
Just mentioning as well, there are events like I think Orbert Davis is doing the Sketches of Spain at
Right.
Is that at the Harris Theater or the Logan Center?
It's at the Logan Center. It's at the Logan Center at 1 p.m. that very Monday, too.
On Monday afternoon. I know WDCB will be doing a live broadcast with Bobby Irving and his trio from Piano Forte. At 6 p.m. on Monday, we'll be doing a live broadcast, and it's free to attend, so we'll have room for an audience of about 100 there, and hopefully we'll be talking to him a little bit about his time with Miles Davis. This is the Miles Davis centennial year. There's the Jazz Institute is having a bus tour also that's happening. I think that's Monday night as well. So there's a lot of stuff happening.
So is the event on April 26th at the Cultural Center, the kind of centerpiece? Or just one of?
That's just one of. I mean, there's so many events. The centerpiece is always the All-Star Global Concert. That's always, is always Dee Dee Bridgewater, Herbie Hancock, Marcus Miller. They're like the core. John Beasley is the music director. And this year, Bobby Watson's coming. Christian McBride is coming. A lot of Chicago folks are also involved, of course, Marquise Hill. And you should know that when a city pitches to bring this event to their town, someone has to organize and get it all together. While Chicago's Herbie's hometown, it was Kurt Elling who put it together, who got the Chicago Jazz Alliance together. And it was Kurt Elling and his organization that made the bid that got us here.
Yeah, it's kind of like Mark, I've never been to one of the big international Jazz Day concerts around the world, but it's kind of like the Super Bowl, where you've got the main event is on the 30th itself, is this big all-star concert, but then there's a week of events that are all around it. And most of them are free to attend. Almost all of them have free admission.
Yeah. UNESCO demands free. Yeah.
You know, you guys mentioned Bobby Irving, and I remember Bobby used to be eating at the Heartland Cafe a lot. If some people wanted to see an interview we did with him in the WLUW studios a number of years back, you go to the Live from the Heartland show and then put in his name. It should come up. I'm not going to guarantee it, but Bobby Irving is a wonderful guy.
Did you know Bobby was Miles's longest serving music director? If I'm not mistaken. Sure. Of that.
Wow.
I just knew he played with Miles. That's good to hear. Well, let me ask you gentlemen a little bit about the state of jazz today. Is there more of it? Is there less of it? Is there a lot of new forms? Is there like a resurgence? I know I heard an interview by a guy named Whitehead on public radio talking about Alice Coltrane and her transformation, and going through some hurdles and where she emerged. Share some information about the state of jazz today.
I guess I'll start. I mean, the one thing I would say is depends who you ask and depends what you're classifying as jazz, but it's really broader and bigger as ever. I mean, you've got this incredible history. I mean, it's 100 plus years of history, and we have access to more of it than we probably ever did back when we used to have to hunt down the records in record stores and not everything was in print. Now you can access almost anything that's ever been recorded. At the same time, it's never going to be like it was when there were multiple clubs at 63rd and Cottage or anything like that in Chicago. But there's a lot of great jazz. Chicago is incredibly vital right now, and not only locally for musicians that we see and hear here in Chicago, but also you could almost say developing artists that are now making an impact around the world. Chicago's just incredible right now. It's fantastic. There's a lot happening.
Well, I just like to say one thing as developing musicians go, it's a whole different world. You used to go to a jam session and there'd be, George Bean, John Bainey, or Eddie Johnson, or George Hughes, all these great musicians hanging, John Young. Can't tell you how much I talk with and listen to Jody Christian on sessions. I mean, great musicians around here. And there's a lot of things that are not available anymore, especially clubs, of course, less clubs, but less places to just go and at midnight, go to the Bulls and hang. Well, first of all, you can't find parking. I mean, that killed us when they did the parking thing. We used to play, here's a quarter and you're good for the rest of the night. Now, I thought, but there's a lot of different things that have changed. And the ability for young people to get out and really just hang and play. The John Bainey jam sessions were famous for those. It's, as far as I know, it really isn't there anymore. And so the development is great. It's just different. It's very different, I think.
They're developing digitally more than anything now. The kids have no walls. So like Dan said, it depends on who you're asking. And I mean, some just don't know jazz, but they might like Isaiah Collier. They don't know it's jazz. They know what they like, And speaking of the Colliers, is it Jeremiah who works with Stanley Clarke? And he's a drummer from Chicago. He got his gig because one day Stanley Clarke was looking at YouTube and he punched in, "Who's the baddest young drummer out there?" And his video came up, and that is how he got the gig with Stanley Clarke. So it's a whole different world, Instead of jam sessions, they're looking at Wes Montgomery play. The thing is, they don't get to hear a whole album though. They don't understand. There are things that are taken away from them, but it's a whole different world.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, and it used to be too. It was like Hampton's looking for a tenor player. Who do you got? Oh, there's this guy Johnny Borden in Chicago, or there's this guy trumpet player Arthur Hoyle in Chicago. That's how it used to be. It was all word of mouth. Cats knew, and there was work, and you learned at the age of 18 on the big bands or wherever you might be. Yeah.
Before I forget, I wanted to share with you that our engineer today, who's my son Hal James, his middle name is Coltrane. Hal Coltrane. And
I like your picture, Hal.
Show us your face, Hal. Come on. Well, here he goes. That was quick.
That was enough. I grabbed it. It was just
let me ask you, what's the legacy of, say, the AACM in Chicago?
Well,
wow.
I want it.
You're the expert.
As far as this program goes, I needed someone on the South Side to address things like the AACM, to address HPK. That's why Lofton Eminary is going to be very valuable in this conversation. Him and Neil, because they know what was going on with the AACM and the art ensemble and how it relates to radio too. And one more thing, Michael, when you talk about the future of radio in Chicago, I mean, Dan Bindert is it. WDCB, true. From what I understand, that's all that's left. Is that true?
Well, Mark, it's very nice of you to say. Yeah, I mean, and there are obviously still, there are programs on the various college stations, like you mentioned, Lofton at WHPK has still a stable of some great jazz programs, and WNUR and various stations.
WLUW, right?
Yeah,
that's right.
But WDCB has really become sort of the one big main hub that's playing jazz with live announcers. I mean, Barry mentioned his program on tape on Saturday mornings, but outside of that, we have still a live DJ 6 nights a week overnight from midnight to 5. We're live from midnight, 19 hours straight till 7 o'clock at night every day.
Wow.
And then a lot of live programs beyond that in the evening. We really still try to put forward the live, locally hosted, a live DJ who's sharing the music with you on the air. Nobody is playlisted. It's not by computer. Barry can attest that, there's certain parameters we work within depending on the day part, but there's no computer generating a program from a music director. All the hosts.
Oh, Dan, that sounds like freedom to me. Sounds like freedom to me.
That's the way it should be.
I'll tell you where I would not be working if there was a computer generated.
Okay, you got 1 minute apiece or about 30 seconds each. Give us a little pitch for whatever you got going on.
Well, I'm a host still at WDCB, When Jazz Was King, 10 a.m. Saturdays. We have an archive, so you can catch everything there. And also, this coming Monday, Jazz for Chicago Big Band, presented by Roger Ingram and Natalie Sharp. Free concert, noon at the Cultural Center, and I'll be the baritone sax player. And thanks for doing this.
I am on Sirius XM every day, 2 to 5. Central Time, Sirius XM Channel 67. I'm also a Terry Collier freak. There's a new Terry Collier album recorded Earl at Old Town. I wrote the liner notes. I think they're very good. And at the end of the year, I will be producing a Terry Collier tribute album with Alan Harris and John Beasley. Very excited.
Yeah. I guess for my last plug, I'll mention that we have, depending on when this is airing, coming up on the 22nd, we have Ethan Fillion doing a 10-piece band with his Meditations on Mingus project that we're going to be doing at the Jazz Showcase, presenting as a WDCB fundraising event, and then the Bobby Irving event at Piano Forte on Monday the 27th at 6 o'clock, and that's a live broadcast on the radio, but free to attend in person. And looking forward to the panel discussion that Mark's hosting. That's really going to be great.
And it's
I want to thank. Go ahead, Mark.
I should say it's RSVP is free. If you want to RSVP, it is markruffin.com/ourjazzlife.
Well, this was fun, you guys. You're bringing back a lot of memories. I didn't even tell you my Ira Sullivan story, but I'll save that for another time. And Euan, you had something special you wanted to share with everybody.
Yeah, I just wanted to say this 17th of April is my sister's birthday. I have twin younger sisters, so happy birthday to Sophie and Celia for the 17th of April. And thanks again for joining us with Live from the Heartland, Dan, Mark, and Barry. It sounds like a week of music and old friends and catching up and enjoyment and fun.
We want to thank everybody who tuned in today, all you citizens of the world, wherever you may be, wherever you're going. We want to encourage you to keep doing good in the world because the world certainly needs all the good that we do, particularly when we do it together. And don't forget, all power to the people. Over and out till next week.
She can. Over the mountain.
Thank you for watching the Live from the Heartland show.
You got a dream
awaiting. Air every Friday beginning at 9 a.m. Central Time.
It may not come easy,
on CAN TV,
but you know you've got a friend.
Sweet Home Chicago.
I'll be by your side the entire ride. Just let me hear you say amen. Are you doing?
Audio episodes go live on WLUW Saturday 9 a.m. on the left end of your dial at 88.7 FM or streaming everywhere worldwide at WLUW.org.
Are you doing the best you can?
They're available on Apple and Spotify podcasts by looking up Live from the Heartland on either platform, and are also broadcast on Lumpen Radio Friday at 9 a.m. on 105.5 FM and streaming at lumpenradio.com. I'm Michael James, and I'm glad to have been your host. Until next time, remember, do good in the world because the world needs all the good that you do, that I do, that we do together. All power to the people. Over and out.
Come to limb. Are you doing the best you can? Tell me, are you doing